Aloha. We have only 3 vocabulary terms this week: charter, checks and balances, and constitutional convention. You remember last week we talked about the Constitution and how it's the document that sets out the central functions of the government. A county charter does the same type of thing, but at the county level. Why do we have 2 different terms? Why is it Constitution for the federal and state bodies and only a county charter? That's because our United States Constitution recognizes only 2 levels of government: the new federal government they were creating and the states. In the view of the writers of the U.S. Constitution, this actually is Amendment 10, both the federal and state governments had specific rights to govern. The 10th Amendment actually reads, "The powers not delegated to the United States," that's the federal government, "by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the state, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." There's no mention of any smaller governmental unit. No counties, cities, towns, villages, nothing. If the state decides to share its powers with smaller pieces of itself, such as counties, the state can do that. But the document that they use to share that power in Hawaii is going to be called a charter. In Hawaii, specifically, the ability to have a charter is provided for Article 8 in the state constitution, which says the legislature shall create counties, and each county shall have the power to frame and adopt a charter for its own self-government. When we take a closer look at what the charter does this week, you'll see a lot of parallels that are set out to the federal and state constitutions. The term checks and balances is what we'll be discussing a lot of in this week's lecture. Remember the week 1 vocabulary video where I talked about the 3 branches of government and how they each had a different role to play? So while the primary duty of the legislative branch is to write and pass those laws, the executive branch, through the governor, through the mayor, through the president, has the ability to veto those laws, to cancel them. This ability to veto is a check, which in this term means a ability to stop something going on in the other branch. The purpose of the checks and balances is to prevent one branch of the government from getting too much power. We'll talk more about this in this week's lecture. For now, you just need to know that the phrase checks and balances refers to the ability of the 3 branches of government to make sure that the one branch cannot gain too much power. The 3rd vocabulary term I'm going to talk about is called the Constitutional Convention, which in Hawaii is often abbreviated as CONCON. In the past weeks, we've talked about the special requirements that are required for an amendment to the Constitution. You have to have a higher than usual number of senators and representatives. You have to have a vote of the people added to it. They're extraordinarily high levels, and most of the time we talk about this type of constitutional amendment, there's one specific change that's trying to be added to the Constitution. However, we can also try to amend the Constitution all at one time. This is called a Constitutional Convention, or a CONCON. We don't have them at the federal level, but we do have them at the Hawaii state level. In this next week, we'll talk a little bit about how one gets to have a Constitutional Convention in Hawaii and what the past CONCONs have done, and why you might want to have one again in the future. And that's it for this week's vocabulary words.